blue coats and brown coats with red facings. So when Washington's army left Valley Forge, most of them were fairly well uniformed. Now the other reality of all that is how long do those uniforms last? A soldier was supposed to be issued 1 coat per year and 2 pairs of breeches and 4 pairs of stockings and 2 shirts. But if any of us were wearing the same clothes we're wearing right now for the next 6 months and wearing the same shoes for the next 6 months and marching 500 or 600 miles with them, you can imagine what condition the clothing would be in. The European armies were much better supplied than the United States Army was, but by the end of the American Revolution, the Continental Army was a formidable professional force. So what you're going to see starting in a minute or so are these troops.
Is that like the...
You notice the British Army just woke up from their mid-afternoon nap. That was a rude awakening, as we say, and now you've irritated.
Is that to wrap it
Look
up?
out.
That's the biggest wrap it up, yeah.
If any of you were startled by that gun going off, imagine what a live round would have done to you. Because it would have fired a 3-pound iron ball with double the amount of gunpowder that you just heard. It would have been absolutely deafening. And these are small field pieces. And coming out on the left is a rather scraggly looking group of riflemen, American riflemen. Many of these guys came from the frontier counties, Virginia, Maryland, and especially Pennsylvania. And they're carrying what are known as Pennsylvania long rifles. They are wearing hunting shirts. This is what American farmers and frontiersmen wore as common clothing in those days, made out of homespun linen.
So we're doing
Washington in 1776 wanted the entire army to dress like this because it was practical and it was cheap and easy to produce. But it also was somewhat raggedy looking, and instilling discipline in the Continental Forces became an endless problem. And one way that you instill discipline and uniformity is having formal uniforms, believe it or not. The rifles they're carrying were based on weapons that were brought by German immigrants to Pennsylvania in the early 18th century. Now, coming out of the woods, you can barely see them, are Hessian Jägers. Jägers are German riflemen, and the rifles they carry, the Jäger rifle, is the prototype of the long rifle. The difference is the Jäger rifles are much shorter. The barrels are only about 2.5 to 3 feet long. They are bigger caliber, but they can hit someone pretty accurately at about 200 yards. So think of that as 2 football fields. The Pennsylvania long rifles were made individually by German gunsmiths in Pennsylvania's counties and some Virginia counties, and it varied according to whoever ordered them. Some of them are 5 feet long and some of them are 7 feet long. They also have a small caliber, 45 caliber. A Pennsylvania long rifle, if it's in the hands of a marksman with good gunpowder and a long barrel, can hit somebody between 200 and 400 yards. Whereas a common smoothbore musket carried by the infantry has an accuracy range of 50 or 60 yards, and typically infantry don't fire at one another till they're at least 80 yards apart. One British officer pointed out that as for firing at your opponent at 100 yards, with a common musket, you may as well fire at the moon. But here's the difference. The rifles are called that because they have rifling in the barrel. It's screws that are cut to the inside of the barrel and they spiral down one full twist. What that does is it puts a spin on the rifle ball, so it'll go much straighter. You also get a lot more compression in a rifle. Here's the bad news. The ball fits so tightly down the barrel it requires a greased patch to get it to slide down the barrel more easily, and the rifleman has to carefully force the ball down the barrel. The more you fire the rifle, the harder it gets because the barrel clogs up with burned powder called fouling. The Jaegers, as you will see, are out on a flank, and they are trained as snipers, but they are not going to make mass infantry rushes at opposing enemy lines. They will snipe and harass and also protect the flanks. But they're very good at taking cover. You can see they're kneeling down. Sometimes they go flat on the ground. British light infantry will also do the same thing, and you'll see that demonstrated when they come out. The biggest difference between the Pennsylvania Riflemen and the German Jaegers is discipline. The American frontiersmen don't like being told what to do. They especially do not like officers in fancy clothing who they don't know giving them orders. They tend to get very ornery and defiant. Washington had to deal with this over and over again. If you ever get up to the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia, there's a wonderful mannequin vignette of Washington breaking up a brawl in the camp up in Boston, where a Pennsylvania rifleman and some of the local Massachusetts fishermen ended up having a serious disagreement.
Oh my God!
They had to come out to break up the brawl. He literally grabbed two of these guys by the scruff of the neck and picked them up off.
Is that war? Or is that pretend?
That's pretend war.
6'2.5", weighed 209 pounds. The average Continental soldier was about 5'7", and depending on the time of year it went on
Having
campaign,
a good time.
anywhere from 120 to 150 pounds. Food with the Continental Army was a continuous challenge. Guys often went for days without eating anything substantial. The Jaegers were trained to follow orders, and again, they were gathered from foresters in central Germany, and they had a strong esprit de corps. The American riflemen tended to be undisciplined and not
Good,
very
man.
dependable.
Yes.
If they were put into a whole battalion, they could be slaughtered.
They're too old to be worried about what other people are doing. You see that dude? The white dude that walked in? He was like, he's like, don't let it fool you. It's not in the era anymore. You get beat up out here.
Now the British line that is down the bottom of the hill, you'll see on the left side of that line, there's a couple of men standing up in green uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
Those are American loyalists. There are about 70,000 Americans took
Yeah,
up
but that
arms
doesn't
against the
keep you
United
safe, though.
States
That's what I'm
during the
saying. Like,
Revolution.
don't let the reenactment fool you. Them
British
days are
dressed
over.
them originally in distinct uniforms. By the end of the war, they too were dressed in red. On the far bottom end of that British front line, kneeling down are British light infantry. They were developed during the First
He looked like it.
War after the first big battle of that war, Braddock's defeat, or the Battle of the Monongahela, 1755, out near Pittsburgh. General Edward Braddock had brought an army of 1,500 British regulars with him, and he was a Coldstream Guards officer himself. But to help guide him out there, he hired a 23-year-old Virginian named George Washington to serve as a volunteer aide, and he promised Washington a commission in the British Army once the campaign was successfully over. Well, that never happened. Braddock's force got attacked about 5 miles from Fort Duquesne. Washington kept trying to tell Braddock that it was not cowardice to take cover. The Native Americans did it, and as far as the British were concerned, it was savage warfare and cowardly. So Braddock made his
that's crazy.
redcoats stand in ranks and fire volleys into the woods. The Native Americans and the French would duck in cover and then pick the
No,
redcoats off.
well, you wouldn't make it
After
in
3
the
hours,
zombie apocalypse
900
period,
British
honestly. You
casualties.
wouldn't make it.
And then Braddock himself, who was brave as anybody could be, 4 horses shot out from under him. He finally
It's
got
pretty
wounded.
they don't stop running.
Washington had 2 horses
just
shot out
decided
from
they
under him in that battle. 4 bullet holes in his coat.
And they could just wait you out.
Some command of what was left of Braddock's
But
force.
they
They
could
got
just
back
wait
across the Monongahela River.
Yeah, kick them
Two of the
down.
surviving British officers of Braddock's
Be your finishing move.
Lord Augustus Howe,
They do have a
Billy
favorite.
Howe.
Resident Evil, the first one.
They
Cameron, you
realized
rest your
the
foot,
British
your
Army was
elbow
going
on my
to
head, that hurts.
develop
Mhm.
light troops, light infantry.
Let's get a little bit closer.
Take cover and
They'll
scatter
pack.
and kneel and fall back to the but also fight in line. The colonial militia was good at scattering, but trying to get them to fight in line was very difficult. So the Howe brothers are going to create British light infantry.
My hip hurts, that's why I keep
In the American Revolution, young Billy Howe becomes General Sir William Howe, commander of the British Army that captures New York and Philadelphia in 1776. Now, even with this small number of reenactors, look how much smoke there is on the field. Even on a bright, well, not quite so sunny, but a bright day, smoke starts to pile up. This is part of the reason why European armies wore colorful uniforms and carried large battle flags with them. It was so their own men could spot pieces where their commanders could see where different units were, and also let your opponents know which regiments were where. Because just like major sports teams have reputations today, regiments in different armies have reputations. If, for example, now Patrick down the far end of Scottish Highlanders, you hear bagpipes, you see Highlanders coming, look out. Their reputation is terrifying. Likewise,